Hey friends, this is Andy. Chorus.ai is the platform for the Vice President of Sales. Chorus believes that customer conversations are a company's most powerful but most underutilized and overlooked asset. With every sales call and meeting seamlessly recorded, transcribed, and analyzed in real time, Chorus.ai provides an unparalleled view into your sales and customer success teams. Highlight coachable moments, uncover insights about your competitors, proactively identify at-risk deals, and so much more with Chorus.ai's elegant and easy-to-use solution for today's data-driven sales leaders. And even better, reps can get started for free today and start seeing real results within the first 5 minutes simply by going to hello.chorus.ai/signup. That's hello.chorus.ai/signup. Remember, Chorus.ai, today's platform for the VP of Sales. This episode of Accelerate is brought to you in part by Discover.org. Looking to close 4 times as many deals in half the time? Discover.org's industry-leading, human-verified sales intelligence gives you all of the data and insights like direct dials, org charts, planned projects, verified emails, and executive moves you need to stop wasting time on research and spend more time talking to the right decision-maker with the right message at the right time. Their team of 250-plus sales researchers do all the work so that you don't have to. 2,500 companies are already using Discover.org to win more deals. So check them out at www.discoverorg.com. That's www.discoverorg.com. It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 612 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. Joining me today on Accelerate is my guest, Chris Rothstein. Chris is the CEO at Groove. You can find them at groove.co. And in today's conversation, it's all about sales engagement. We're going to dive into one of my favorite subjects, sales productivity, and really get into how can SDRs and AEs become more effective and productive with the prospects that they have. If you'd like to see the show notes for this episode, go to andypaul.com/612. Before I talk with Chris, let me remind you that today's show is brought to you in part by our friends at Discover.org. The Discover.org platform is a game changer for sales marketing professionals. This feature-rich sales intelligence platform is supported by 250-plus researchers who continually update contact data and provide account-specific insights to help sales and marketing teams break ahead of the pack. See the product live at discoverorg.com/schedule-demo. That's discoverorg.com/schedule-demo. And today's show is also brought to you in part by our friends at Chorus.ai. Chorus.ai makes your customer conversations work for you. VPs, sales enablement managers, and AEs alike all benefit from the power and ease of Chorus.ai's platform. Customers of Chorus.ai have seen dramatic increases in their close rates within the first 6 months of usage, and ramp-up periods for new reps cut nearly by half. All the while gaining real insights to help you not only sell smarter, but sell better. To check it out, go to Chorus.ai. That is Chorus.ai. All right, let's jump into it with Chris Rothstein. Chris, welcome to Accelerate.
Thanks for having me.
Hey. Pleasure to have you here. So you're joining us from where today?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah. So as we're recording this, which is a few weeks before it's actually going to air, this is when the big fires are going on in the wine country. So I imagine you're seeing some of that impact there in San Francisco.
Yep, definitely. It's very noticeable today. Just walking around the streets, it's very hazy and very, very different than normal in San Francisco. But hopefully everything's getting under control up there.
Yeah. Well, not a good day to go for a long run or anything like that. So,
yeah.
All right. So I have a standard question I open the show with, and that is, in your mind, what's the single biggest challenge facing sales reps today?
That's a good question. I think, one of the big challenges, or the single biggest, is probably just overall noise. It feels greater in any of the spaces that I've been in. So there's just more products, and which means you have to find ways to stand out more. And to stand out, I think you have to provide value, and you can't just come in and pitch features and just talk about very basic things. You have to be able to truly offer something that your competitors can't. And I think that's even more so than it was, where potentially you held many things kind of, you had a good product or less products, and you kind of gave them stuff in exchange for them taking steps, information. Now that's all online. And I think you have to be just far better at providing true value in every interaction, because it's really noisy.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. It's almost like you've read my books. But yeah, you have to bring your A game every time you meet and interact with a customer. I mean, you can't say, this call's not important, or this email's not important, or this meeting's not important. Yeah, they all are, because not only, as I said, is the noise something that salespeople confront, it's the buyers are confronting it as well. And so, to your point, how do you stand out?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Groove. What you do and who your target market is.
Yeah, so we're a sales engagement platform. What that really means is we just help reps sell when they're actually selling. So when they're emailing, when they're calling, and when they're communicating their message, that's where we help them. Our target market is generally mid-size and above companies. At least, let's say, 20 to 50 reps, up to thousands. We power a lot of the premier tech companies, from Google to Slack to Uber and so on. And basically, we're looking for anyone that wants to be a very data-driven sales org and very efficient.
Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of companies sort of in that space.
Yep.
So how are you differentiated from the Outreaches and the Sales Lofts of the world and so on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think number one, where we're really strong today is we have what we call an all-in-one solution. So basically, our solution is for your entire sales team, whereas you look at Outreach and Sales Loft, generally they're powering the SDR team. We focus on everyone. We actually started more with AEs, and the reason we were strong in that area is because Google was our first big user base, and that's a very complex company with many divisions, many roles, and so on. And we built for that. And that's kind of how we got started in that area, and a strength in that area. And number two, I think we have a lot of other differences, but I would say if I had to pick one, that's the largest difference to date.
Okay, so I mean, if you were a VP of sales, if I were a VP of sales looking at making a decision, it's the all-in-one aspect of it, that handles both SDRs and AEs, as opposed to just being sort of a sales development platform.
Yep, exactly. Because you don't want, when your SDRs get promoted to AE, which is a common path, you don't want them to now use a different tool, learn something new that collects data a different way, and so on. So that's kind of our overall value prop.
And serve primarily tech companies, or do you companies outside the tech sphere?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. We actually started outside of the tech kind of world, and that was because I grew up in Minnesota, like I mentioned, and I wanted to prove we could provide value to kind of traditional companies. So the vast majority of the first clients we closed were like located in the Midwest, tire shops to aerospace companies to a parking company, all of that. But then recently we've been really focusing on tech, and just because we're doing more and more interesting analytical stuff, and that's where tech companies are really pushing the boundary of what's possible and what they want, I think.
Well, so when you say you're doing more analytical, why do tech companies, why are they more demanding from the analytics standpoint?
It just feels like this new wave of reps, especially in tech companies, they're really treating it a lot more like a scientist, where they're A/B testing messages. They're really trying to understand the return on everything, and this kind of mentality just seems to be slightly more common in tech. Maybe they're early adopters or whatever it may be, but it just feels more common in tech with our tech customers. Like it seems to be more of a pattern, and that's why we focused on that right now. But it is definitely going into every other company as well. But I think some organizations are just slightly slower to adopt newer things, and it'll take a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a sort of interesting question about this sort of class of tools. Is I just seen a report not that long ago from InsideSales.com. They had done some research about cadences.
Yep.
And did you see that by any chance?
Not that specific one.
Okay.
No.
And you support that. You a product you call flows, I guess, right? Within your product. And the thing that's sort of interesting is they did a study of like 15,000 cadences, which encompassed 150,000 roughly activities. And sort of the net of it was that cadences are kind of a fiction. They're doing audits. They're doing audits of actual. This wasn't people self-reporting what they do. This is audits of actual cadences and activities. And unless you consider a cadence one email, which is the predominant thing of what happened, is that we've it's like, okay, well, we're not actually doing these things. We got these products that have these great capabilities, and yet this is what I see more and more. And I've had people say, like, some of the account-based sales and account-based management products is that, yeah, they're great platforms, but dive into the company and see how they're really using them, and they're just sort of doing the same stuff they're always doing, just on that platform. So, are you seeing this where the behavior change isn't really taking place?
It's interesting. I definitely have seen that before, where an organization, they come in and they say, let's really change this up and do all this new stuff, cadences and so on. And then you look a couple months later, and it just feels like it did not. Literally, they're using the cadence stuff for mail merge, which they already did,
right? Yeah.
And stuff like this. But then at the same time, I've seen many orgs where they go all in, and it's kind of a top-down sales leadership mentality of how they're running, their team, and they are living and dying by incredibly complex cadences that I think they are getting very good ROI on. And it's hard to know because generally people don't set up true experiments where they say, this half of the team's using cadences, this one's just going to do the old way, do whatever you want. That's like these true experiments to measure ROI that way. I haven't seen that much. But you can tell where they go in and then their reps straight up say, I closed 200,000 more in business this year, and I feel like a lot of it's because of that. And when I hear that, then I say, they have a good feel for probably how much it helped them and how many quality activities they were able to get out in the same time period from an experienced rep. So I think it's definitely there. And at this point, at least when we're selling, it's typically not a question of does it make sense. It's more a question of which one do I want to choose, which I think is a good state to be in.
Yeah, well, I guess so. The question is, how do we help drive the adoption in a way that makes a difference in outcomes, right? Because some of the research data that comes out, and we just have to admit that it's sort of self-reported, so you don't really know, the real value between it. But things like percentage of quotas making rep or percentage of reps making quota, excuse me, and other sort of stats along that line that sort of paint a picture of a fairly stagnant sales environment in terms of outcomes and achievement. And yet at the same time, we're living at this golden age of sales technology. And to me, I'm still, and people listen to the show regularly know I sort of struggle with this, is like, I don't see that chasm being crossed, right? Where the technology is driving improvements in outcomes sort of across the board.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think, for us, I definitely don't think it's a question of like just increases in volume. I think the first phase of these tools was just, it allows you to blast more people.
Right.
And reps were just doing, 3,000 emails a week. And I was like, that's just, just to give you a couple examples, we saw some customers that reduced that 75, 80, 90%, and they actually booked more meetings or whatever their goal was. And in most cases, it's that if they're doing truly blasting and reducing the number of activities. So I think that was a failed, or at least the ROI was not great on that. You burnt a lot of relationships and you made very little kind of headway. I do believe in kind of the new stuff where people are taking these approaches, being more focused yet being structured. It seems to be working well, but I haven't seen a specific study where it really backed that up fully and kind of made you feel really, really good about that part.
Yeah, well, I think people are excited by the prospect of account-based selling, right? Hey, we can be more targeted, we can be more strategic. But the fact is that even for most companies, there are very few that can live and breathe purely on what they capture through the enterprise customers. I mean, many of them came of age building a substantial business through SMB or small, mid-sized enterprise, right? And it's like they're still, we get excited about ABM, but what are we doing with these? What are we doing with these two tiers that we've been addressing that have been very successful for us? Are we still doing the same old things?
Yep.
And it seems
I
like
think
we are.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is interesting though is I think the technology allows you to take that what you used to do and kind of like you mentioned there, ABM or ABS and maybe traditionally you could only cut up and target 500,000 or whatever. I think you can now realistically with this technology do the same thing but target the top 4,000, 5,000. Like for us, we literally know the top 10,000 accounts we're trying to get into and we tier them all and we work down that list in a way that we couldn't before, at least in a better way than we could at Google. So it becomes where you can apply that to a much larger audience, which I think is kind of the overall goal or benefit.
Yeah. So you've got profiles on. So I assume you're using something like Discover.org or some tool to be able to build your list of your 10,000, start segmenting them. So what's your sales structure look like?
Yeah, so we definitely use a variety of tools, including some of our kind of own scripts and things that generate this data. Then we organize the accounts, and basically we have a kind of a traditional, almost like a pod structure with an AE and SDR matched together. And their goal is, hey, you have this many, and you need to get through these and get as much business out of that as possible. And then we have every kind of tracking you could imagine on their penetration into those accounts. And where we're strong, weak, where we're making progress, where we're stalled, and we just kind of work through that list that way. Traditionally, is in a similar way to maybe a large deal hunter might do, but in just larger numbers. But you can really group people in so many ways now, which is really interesting, and the total audience really well with LinkedIn and everything.
Right. So with your pods, you do a one-for-one matching?
Yes, right now.
Interesting. Okay. And you tier that by account size or something of that nature?
Basically, account size, technologies used, and maybe 4 or 5 attributes that really matter, such as sales ratio, like how many sales reps they have per employee, because certain industries are better, things like this. So a wide variety of kind of, obvious metrics like industry, but then less obvious things as well.
Okay.
Like technology.
Like technology, so on. All right. So,
yep.
So I'll talk about a little bit bigger issue. Well, I think it's a bigger issue. It's more philosophical issue, let's say. And because one of the things that you talk about with your products is improving sales productivity. And this is sort of a holy grail for lots of companies. So let me ask you a question. So in your mind, what is sales productivity?
Yeah, I think sales productivity is, how many, for a rep, how many times you can get your message out and convert somebody to be a true, paying customer or valued member of your, customer base. So it's basically for every one person, how many times can you distribute that message in a useful way, I think is what I would define it as. So, can you acquire customers of a certain size per person?
Mm-hmm. See, I look at it a little different. I think we have an issue in sales is we don't really understand productivity. I mean, I look at productivity in a more economic sense, right? It's a unit of output for measured by some unit of input that you put into it. So it's widgets produced per hour of labor. And I've for a long time I've looked at sales productivity from this perspective. Okay, well, how much revenue can I produce per hour of sales time?
Yep.
And to me, it seems like that relates to actually producing the outcome, right? And it seems like a problem that we're not measuring it that way because we're sort of measuring productivity in terms of again, activities within a certain period of time that may or may not correlate ultimately to getting the order.
Yep. So, and you're saying you would measure it based on, I think what we're saying is somewhat aligned though, is basically the output of how many customers you get or how much revenue per person is roughly the same as, dollar per person, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to know, well, not a little bit different. So, I mean, I'd like to know, and I ask client CEOs this all the time, is okay, so tell me, how many hours of sales time does it take you from the initial point of contact to an order, the first order?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are you investing in terms of number of hours in that? And I never can get an answer because people don't know. And it seems like to me that's the true measure of productivity. I mean, if I could increase the number of dollars of revenue generated per hour of selling time, and what that means in terms of my structure and the training and the people I need and so on, that becomes a more effective way to actually capacity plan, drive increases in revenue and scale, and so on.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely interesting. And I don't see that measured either in the market often. I think there are people that probably measure something like that, but they're doing it at a very high level of, here's how much they produced and, here's the number of hours in a week or something. It's not true like selling time, which is kind of, I guess, one of the issues.
Well, yeah, and so I'm always, curiosity is always piqued by this and sort of interested in people's perspective on it, because if you can, it seems like one of the things we talk about in terms of let's increase productivity by freeing up more time for people to be actively selling during the day. It's taken away from some of the bureaucratic and so on. But yet we seem to be unable to do that. I mean, as far as I can tell, the fact that reps only spend, you name it, right? 20 to 30 to 40% of their day actually selling. I'm not sure that number's changed in decades. And I'm sort of curious why you think that is the case. Given, again, that we've got all this influx of incredible technologies into sales, why do we still have this issue? And why don't individual reps seem more productive?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's probably going up a little bit, but I do agree it's still definitely not even in the right ballpark. And I think part of that is probably because with every increase in efficiency, we add another requirement. We say, hey, now you don't have to log things or this, and you saved an hour. But then we say, you know what, we want to know now. Every time we have a win or a loss, we want to collect all this information. Like every time we gain something, we add something. It feels like it's this constant.
That's interesting. I like that.
Filling up of that time. And I don't know. I also at some point question, how much you could what's the true top of what it could be. If you're a rep and you take eight plus phone calls in the day, there isn't much more you're going to be able to do efficiently at that point, probably, where, if these are true demos or really intense pricing calls or whatever it may be. I think there is also a limit on that. And, I see some reps getting close to that probably, but there's definitely still too many other things. And I think partially because of that, what I mentioned earlier, we just keep adding more and more requirements on people.
So as we look forward then, I mean, some of those requirements clearly could be automated. I mean, you're implying as such, and I think that is the case, right? I mean, sort of the hope of AI and sales is not that necessarily replaces a salesperson, but it frees them from some of the more repetitive tasks, let's say.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely happening already. That part. There's so many things that I work with some of our customers on where they used to literally copy and paste their emails into Salesforce or do things like this that were just very, very slow. And now you have all these different technologies helping you take notes to automatically understanding all your activities, taking everything off your calendar that's important, like doing everything that traditionally you had to do to understand kind of your activities. There's still a large gap in certain areas, I think, but definitely some of that stuff is getting much better every day.
Okay. All right. Well, which I agree. And I've seen some of those things, and I'm sure you've seen a bunch that I haven't, given where you are is so we still get back to for me, I get back to this issue. I'm just including you since you're in this conversation, is that how do we make a bigger change, right? I mean, how do we get a sustained change? Let's not say bigger. I mean, I look at like this. I go to conferences and I hear them people talk about close rates. It's in the SaaS business and so on. I think, wow, these are really low.
Yep.
And yet the answer oftentimes seems to be that if we want to grow the business, is just to do more of what we're doing, as opposed to let's do things really differently, right? Let's change how this is taking place, because this has been great to get us to this point, but it's not going to get us to where we want to be. But I'm not seeing enough of that evolution in the sales model, and I don't know, maybe you see it from your perspective, but it seems like we're sort of stagnant to some degree, at least in certain sectors.
Okay. And do you not think then, like, you don't think the average rep is kind of overall producing more than they were 4, 5, 6 years ago then? Like as far as, if you took a rep and the problem is, I guess the market's always changing, but if you said, here are your 50 potential accounts, how many can you acquire in 12 months? You don't think the average rep is producing more than they were 10 years ago?
No, I don't think the data is showing that either.
Okay.
And so I think that, it's hard to do comparisons, right? Because, we've seen this generational shift into SaaS from hosted software. And so, during that time frame, so, it's hard to sort of say, but I think the comparison would be is, look, if we'd look at, a certain product of a certain type and say, okay, I'm not sure if maybe SaaS is maybe the right one or not the right one, but, if you could say, okay, let's compare what we were doing 5 years ago versus what we're doing today, is the productivity per person, and let's measure that as take it all the way through to the outcome, right? Orders, is this better than it was? And I haven't seen. I mean, I keep telling people, if you have the data, show me the data. I want to see it because I'd love to see it. I don't want to. I'm not being a Cassandra here, but I'm just sort of raising a red flag and saying we're all so in love with these processes we're using, but I haven't seen anything that says that we're getting better as a result of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't have any specific data on that. I think it probably depends on your business model. Like some of these companies that have one rep managing, many, many hundreds of accounts and is closing deals at a very high rate. I think these businesses are definitely seeing a difference. No, I don't know. I can't compare that to someone 10 years ago with the exact same business model, but I do believe there is different segments that are definitely feeling it or based on their process and seeing results that are really good.
I've interviewed hundreds of people like you, founders, CEOs of tech companies, primarily in the sales and marketing space over the past couple of years. And, hear about close rates and so on. It's like, okay, if that was really the case, if we're really making progress, it's more evidenced by the fact is, okay, if I'm a SaaS company and I'm closing 20% of the qualified opportunities in my pipeline today, which I think is roughly an average in the SaaS business, next year should be 21, the year after should be 22. I should be seeing incredible progress in average close rates really throughout this whole industry. Mm-hmm. And at least again, as far as the data that's available that I'm seeing and that people are self-reporting at conferences and so on, I haven't seen that happening yet. So that's why I'm really curious about this whole issue of productivity, because we've got, we are in SaaS business got this incredible potential engine that's being successful to a certain degree, and it seems like we're not enabling it to be even more successful.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a long way to go. It feels early yet. Even still talking to many prospects and customers, many people are still trying to solve very basic parts, like how do I just give my reps some time of their day back by not doing these really manual tasks. Like many conversations are still in that part, and they're not even getting to the next part of what they could really do proactively or very differently. I think they're first trying to get some of that time back. So I think many people are still in that phase.
All right. Well, let me pose another question, and I'm not trying to subject to the questions. It's just like, as I started thinking about what you do, and as people listen to the show a lot, know that we get into these types of discussions a lot, sort of philosophical about where we're going and so on. But you're alive. You're in the sales business. You heard the stat that buyers today are 50% of the way through their buying process by the time they engage with sellers. Now, if that were the case, right? If we just sort of play out the argument, then shouldn't it say that the number of salespeople we need to create a certain amount of revenue should have plummeted because the buying process, thus the sales cycle, should be much shorter?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. It feels like part of it just shifted, because now I feel like at least a lot of the reps that I've worked with, they're almost like some blend between sales and doing onboarding / piloting and so on, like the next phase, and some of it's just shifted even earlier. So I don't know if that's true in every business, but I've seen that a lot in different kind of businesses that I've seen.
Yeah, but I mean, even taking that into account, right, is because something that's depending on the business you've been in. Traditionally, it's been somewhat of a sales function, but
Yep.
it's like, I was just sort of thinking about this. Okay, if you look at the logic and say, okay, if a customer's truly 50% of the way, and arguably you could say, well, gosh, if the first 50% is sort of the awareness education phase, that those actually are oftentimes the most time consuming. Is if they're 50% of the way, they've made some decisions, right? They've narrowed the pool from eight potential vendors to 3, let's say, and so on. Is that you start following the logic? You're saying, okay, well, if that's the case, then are we really overstaffed in sales? Because the customer's done so much of the work, and so if that's the case, then also why aren't this whole idea of only 50% of sales reps making quota? Why is that the case? I mean, why shouldn't it be higher if the customers are, in essence, to some degree, and again, not fully, but some degree self-qualified, they've gotten to the point where they enter your pipeline?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have any numbers on the exact, competition side either. But bringing it back to an earlier part of our conversation of like, maybe you now spend less time on informing them, the market of, do you have this need and so on. But that time is actually shifted to true competitive kind of back and forth and handling, how you're the best solution. I think in many markets that is the case where you might have had 1-2 solutions max. That were massive projects, and you had to go to your sales rep just to get information on everything and spend so much time in that part. And now you can determine you have a need, get pretty far, but now you got to pick out of 7 solutions. So you got to kind of spend more time on that part of the sales cycle potentially. I don't know enough of it. That's probably industry specific, but I could see that causing some shift of time, but causing it so that you wouldn't gain that much overall per rep.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thought. I'll have to factor that in the competitive selling. I mean, I think some of that takes place, prior to them ever engaging with sales, if you believe that model about the 50%. But I mean, it's just one of those things that unfortunately I spent a lot of time thinking about, because it's like, how do we change how the way things are? Because we've had this tremendous change in certain segments in the way we sell, but you look at the ultimate outcome, it's like, at least the stats that are available, it's like, we're not. It's like we've rearranged the chairs, right? The deck chairs and the old Titanic joke. It's like, but we haven't really affected a change as far as the customer goes. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by this type of stuff. I'm always fascinated by people's opinion, because I feel like something's happening, right? I do sense, part of the reason I ask these questions, try to get the conversation going, is I think that I think we're within a few years of seeing a pretty substantial shift and so how we decide we're going to go about this next evolution of the sales model, and just sort of curious to have people's thoughts on how they see it playing out. So, well, Chris, I appreciate you taking the time to join me. I mean, it's been a fascinating conversation.
It's been awesome.
So tell folks how they can find out more about Groove and connect with you.
Yeah, so we're at groove.co, so groove.co. You can see everything there, and then I'm on LinkedIn obviously as well under Chris Rothstein. But other than that, you can check out our website if you want to learn more, and would love to hear from you on LinkedIn or Twitter as well.
Great. So one question before you go is, so where'd the name come from?
The name came from the we were really fascinated with the psychology concept of flow. I have so we really wanted to help reps get into this feeling like in sports and so on, where you're just in the zone, and that's our ultimate goal as a company, is to help every salesperson feel that.
No, I like that. Very cool. All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
And friends, thank you for spending this time with us today. Make sure you come back, join us again for our next great episode of Accelerate. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.